Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, and I'm sitting in a church. This is the second of my little quiet contemplations of sitting in a church, where I think about things that are important to me. And where else to come than sitting in the quietness of a church space. Today I'm in Bunkton. Don't get confused with Dunkton. I've made a series of videos in Dunkton, but this is Bunkton, close to the Whiston estate, just north of Chantonbury Ring on the South Downs, near to Ashington and Stenning. And I'm in this beautiful Norman church built around about 1070. I just made a quick walk around video about that. Today I'm thinking about villages. What's happened to our villages? In many ways, as churches have become more and more redundant in people's lives, I feel villages have gone the same way. But whereas churches are generally crumbling and in desperate need of repair, particularly rural ones, villages, particularly rural ones, seem to be incredibly well looked after, many of them. They look manicured with wonderful hedges, the beautiful timber-framed houses in many of the Sussex villages with their red hung tiles. They look amazing. They look so clean and tidy. And many of the houses, as you walk around the villages, will have signs on them like the old bakery, the old school, the blacksmiths, things like that, which just make it a joy walking round these wonderful villages that we have. And yet, I say that they are redundant. So why so? Well, when you think back how a village was started, there was a hierarchy. You had maybe the lord of the manor, the squire. You had the parish priest, the vicar, the rector, the cleric. You may have had monks nearby with an abbey. You may have had a castle. And then on the other end of the scale, you had your serfs, your labourers. You had your yeoman farmers. You had people who had a trade or a skill, like your blacksmith, your butcher, the chap on the roof doing the thatcher. I had to think about that for a second. You had your wheelwright. You had those people in the woods, the charcoal burners. You had the woodman doing the coppicing. You had many, many different crafts, perhaps some of them working on an estate for the Lord, perhaps others working independently for farmers. And then, of course, you had your labourers who would go out and do a mixture of jobs, from planting, from weeding, from cutting, to the harvest, to all sorts of mending and repairing, work that had to be done. And within that village and within that community and that environment, you had, of course, places where people gathered. The church, naturally, on a Sunday for services. You had the pub, or several pubs, where people could unwind and maybe scheme and come up with plans, things to make the world better, how they would overrun the government. They would do all sorts of things, inebriated on the ale that was freely available, and back then relatively cheap, only to find that when they woke up the following day, they couldn't remember any of it, and the next night that they were in the pub, they would start those schemes again, harmless. Gossip would be exchanged in such places. Business would be transacted in those inns. The village green, the village pond, all these places where events would take place. Dancing round the maypole, the annual fete, the markets, the itinerant traveller arriving with some strange wonders from other place and news from other areas. All very important stuff, with all different manners of people rubbing shoulders with one another. Absolutely incredible community spirit. And now, when I walk around those villages and I look at them, I'm aware of how cleaner the houses are, cleaner than ever they were before. They may be coiffured. Everything's in its place. The road tarmacked and immaculate. And yet it was never like that, really, was it? It was never this picture box that we now see as we walk around them. On the driveways, I notice interesting vehicles. Mercedes-Benz, BMWs, Land Rovers, big, large, expensive cars. And I lament that the people who own these houses are the people who have sufficient funds to live there. It seems to me that over the last 80-odd years, this is now the ghetto of the rich. I've got nothing against people who have money, and if I had money, I would certainly choose to live in a beautiful village. Why wouldn't you? But it just seems a little strange, ironic, unfair, that people who were born in a village can no longer afford to live in a village, and that the professions that were once there have now all gone. There is no butcher, no candlestick maker, no thatcher, no blacksmith. All of these have been removed and have taken on by larger conglomerates, corporations, now doing those services that we once found so very important and were part of society. And so when I look at the village and I walk around now, I see that the heart has gone. Whereas people knew exactly what was going on and spoke to each other, talked to each other, face to face, met in the pub or on the village green. And people now only talk on social media, on their tablets, on their computers and on their phones. It's not so easy to talk to people in your community face to face anymore. And maybe in a lot of these villages where people who have the money and have come down from the city and want to get away don't know one another. Perhaps there are still a few of the older families who know, but what happens when these older families die out and these £1 million properties that were once the homes of the labourers and the commoners and some of the middling classes, what happens then? It's a strange irony that something that was, I suppose, the right of everybody to be away in the countryside, to have fresh, clean air, to look at trees, to hear the morning birds and the evening owls, to be away from the noise and hustle and the bustle, that nowadays to do that, you've got to have quite an extortionate income. It's somebody like me, or even people who earn more than I, cannot afford to move into these amazing properties, or even if they can afford to move into them, perhaps with some help with inheritance, couldn't really afford to have the upkeep. So that's what I mean when I say villages have become redundant. The community that was once there has now gone. I don't know what one can do about that. We are in our modern days. I just feel it's a shame, really. There's something in me, and I can't really explain it, that hankers for those older days. Of course, I don't want all the illnesses and the hardships that came with it. Who does? But there's something about that community spirit that, like the crumbling churches, we seem to have lost. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll do another of these another time, quiet contemplation on things that are important to me. If you have any ideas that you want to ask for me to think about, then please leave a comment. In the meantime, don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, become a patron and support what I do. That would be great. But until next time, thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye. I hope you're enjoying this video. Why not help me make more and become a patron? A small donation really makes all the difference and keeps me out and about producing these magnificent presentations. So go to boldexplorer.com and become a patron today.